Hello there, welcome. Welcome to this session. Now, uh, we have, unfortunately, Gail isn't with us at the moment. So we're going to do a slightly different thing that hopefully will still meet people's expectations with things. Just to introduce myself, my name is Matt Harris. I've been home educating for 4 years now. I still feel like a bit of a newbie, so this could be a very good session for me as well. And I know Juliet through streams, things like that. And yeah, unfortunately, Gail can't be with us right now. But what we're hoping to do is to have a little Q&A. So if you've got any questions yourselves about obstacles in home education, and you have got we've got Anya there. We've got two Heidis. You've got a double Heidi thing going on. So we've got some incredible people you can speak to and put your messages to maybe talk through some obstacles in home education. And I'll just let Beth in as well. So let Beth join, and then I shall go through that again. Yeah, hello, welcome everybody. As I was just saying to other people as well, welcome Beth. I'm just saying that unfortunately Gail can't join us at the moment. So what we're hoping to do is almost like a mini panel for people. You're incredibly lucky to have Anya, Heidi and Heidi with us this afternoon to be able. So if you have any obstacles that you have in mind to do regarding your own personal home education journey, you've got some fantastic people to speak to and ask questions of. Maybe we can talk around some of the obstacles that that people have or you have within your home education, in your home education journey. So we'll wait a bit longer, but if you have any questions, you can either ask them, as there are a few of us, which is fantastic. Nice. It's almost like a personal mentoring session if you want. You can ask questions to the panel, or if you want to put them in the chat, that'd be great too. Just to say hello again, my name is, maybe we should introduce ourselves.
Yeah, Matt, I was going to say, would it be helpful if we actually introduced ourselves so people were
yeah, go for it, Heidi.
I'll go first. Yeah, my name's Heidi Still, as it says on the screen. I'm an unschooling parent to 4 children who have never been to school. My eldest is 15, and then I have a 13-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 7-year-old. My background is as a former teacher, which heavily influenced my decision to home educate. And specifically, we unschool our children, so they follow a sort of a self-directed education within our home. And so we've been doing that. Well, as I said, my eldest is 15, so we've been doing that a while. I'm based in the UK, and I will pass over to the other Heidi, who is based much, much further away.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, privileged to be here at the Learn Free conference for the 2nd year in the row as one of the speakers, and really happy to jump on here with the panel to see how we can support you. So I met Juliet last year, and I've been home educating we actually call it homeschool. So please forgive me if I actually slip up and actually call it homeschool. I know that's a trigger for some of you over there. But what we mean by homeschool, and is exactly the same as what Peter Gray thought of as homeschool and speaks of homeschool, is the home education, just like you were doing there. It's definitely not school at home. So I've been doing that. We're in our 8th year at the moment. I've only got my 15-year-old, 18-year-olds on his feet and exploring the world. So well, as much as you can these days here. So my background is in health and safety management, like corporate world, but also since 2001, I have been a life coach, trained as a life coach, and in 2002 trained people. So I've trained hundreds of life coaches. So my specialty now with home education and home education parents is to help you hold the space for yourself and for your family and your child as they're learning and growing. So very much self-directed pathway. and interest, passion, purpose led. So yeah, very happy. If you're not sure and you were just here to listen to what obstacles there were and then gradually get braver, maybe you could think of, well, why are you here? What would make the biggest difference to your lives and your home education journey right now? Like what would you've got us, take us. So yeah, so let's go.
Yeah, great. And we've also got Anya there. Hello, Anya.
Hi.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Anya. I'm originally from Germany, but it's illegal to home educate your children. Hence, I have family members who are very much against our decision because to them, I'm a criminal. My eldest is 13. She's never been to school. My youngest is 8. I have 4. So they're 8, 9, 10, and 13. All have never been to school, although my eldest has just this weekend asked to go to school. So it's a whole new experience for us now to try and navigate this, because obviously we have our opinion, she has hers. So it's a whole new thing we're treading now. So and we don't have a specific. We try and follow the Charlotte Mason. It's funny that Leah just came in. That point. Which works for some, it doesn't. They all have very different, like how each person is different, and each of my children are learning very, very differently. So it's not one size fits all, even in our home. So yeah, that's us.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, it's great to have you all here. And nice to see Leah pop in as well. Yeah, so what would you say? So let's kick it off. What are some of the obstacles that you think the big obstacles that you have in home education? What comes to mind, either for you or for generally, for the obstacles in home education? Yeah, go Julie. Yeah, thank you,
Julie. Firstly, I'm Julie Spriddle, and I actually run Home Education Coventry. I'm an experienced home educator. So I came here to listen to what other people consider to be obstacles rather than because I have any obstacles myself.
Sure.
Because I support people who are new to home education and have been a home educator for quite a long time now, 8 years, something like that. Yes, 8, just one child, 8 years. So, but anyway, so my thought was one of the biggest obstacles to home education is misinformation and myths. And by that, I mean, it starts with pressure on people to put children into school that starts before they're even at nappies. And even if people have wanted to home educate, so we get a lot of people pulling children out of school because actually most children now have attended school. Those of us who have home educated from the beginning are actually now very rare in amongst home educators. So you get people who wanted to home educate from the beginning but didn't because pressure has been put on them. They get told by pretty much everybody around them that their children will not learn, their children won't be able to socialize, their children will never have any friends, you will not be able to teach them to read. Even when you're dealing with 2-year-olds, the subject of exams, other people will apply pressure to the children. Perhaps mummy and daddy will let you go to nursery. Perhaps mummy and daddy will let you go to school. Then it comes from their friends. Well, your mummy and daddy are going to go to prison. And I've heard all of these, that kind of comment directed at my daughter. So just as a general discussion starting point, how do you overcome the myths, misconceptions, and misinformation generally about home education?
Great question. Thank you, Julie.
Starting point.
So yeah, anyone like to hop in with that? How do we deal with the misinformation and the sort of the pressure that's out there regarding home education?
Well, thanks, Matt. I'm glad that you're handling this panel really well. So this is a slightly different panel, a different session to what we planned, because Gail Hanlon seems to have disappeared, and I have been trying to get a hold of her, so sorry about that. I would just say, you know, I agree with Julie that I think one of the biggest disadvantages, people ask you what are the disadvantages of home education, and for me one of the biggest is just discrimination and sort of false stereotypes that people hold. And one of the, oh, that's some mug for you there, Matt. And I think one of the things that I find I'm doing more these days is just actually trying to get people to follow through on their own logic. So you kind of, you know, ask them the questions, you know, if they make a statement, you say to them, okay, so how do you figure that? You know, do you want to explain that a little bit more to me? And then let them explain it. And then you can ask them, okay, so how does that work? And how does it, so, you know, if you think of the socialization argument, you know, you take them back in their own thinking to unpick it for themselves. And you know, I think people don't realize they need to arrive, get there themselves, because they don't realize just how much prejudice and how much they've bought into these commonly held views. If you think of the politicians, for instance, how many of them just blindly continue to say the same things, never going actually to research it and find out if there's actually any evidence behind it. And you know, they just keep rehashing it, and because they keep saying it, obviously it must be true. So we kind of have to try and get them, and it is going to possibly be an individual by individual that we change perceptions, because the Kool-Aid is strong, and I don't know if there's an easy antidote to, you know, just put something in the water so that people's eyes are open to actually realize the sometimes the ridiculousness of what they're actually saying, and how it just doesn't make sense. So to me, if you can take people back in their own logic, to just ask and play devil's advocate with them instead of the other way around, because they often play devil's advocate to us, don't they, as home educators. And I think if we turn that around, you know, maybe we can change one at a time. Certainly, I think from my perspective, where I have been able to change their views is to ask them also about their own educational experiences. You know, what did they like the most? What did they like the least? Is there anything that you carry on you, like any kind of negative idea about yourself, you know, that's impacted your life, that maybe goes back to school? Did you learn more after school than you learned in school? Why did you learn, you know, if you learned more after school, why was that? What was the driving force behind that? And then why would children be any different? So yeah, so you've got to try and take that bit of time to unpick. It doesn't help when people, if we get loud and shouty and rude, and that definitely doesn't help the stereotypes. So got to take that time.
I agree with you. It's to do with patience in conversation with people and listening to people, and but then also being able to, yeah, I think you're right, Juliet, that one person at a time, just having those conversations, unpicking those assumptions that people make. Yeah. And I think you're right as well. One thing I've noticed, I don't know whether other people have that thing of when you step outside of the system, you're kind of looking back in, you start asking the question why, and that's a really good question to ask. You know, why do we do that? You know, what's the reason for that? Because you start then working out actually, yeah, why do we do that? And it sometimes ends up with because we've always done that, and actually that's the place to start unpicking that. Another thing I'm realizing more and more, and so I'm the principal home educator in our family, which means I'm a bit of an outlier as far as the home ed world is concerned. But so just aware that my wife Nick, she's still going through that. Well, we're all still going through the deschooling process, having been brought up through the system, and I think that's in trying to walk other people who are still within the system to be able to walk through that as well. What other people think? Go on, Heidi C.
Yeah, so speaking about, walking, I use, when it comes to the myths and what do you buy into and what don't you, I use my grandmother's advice, my Deutsche grandmother, my German grandmother, Oma. She used to say, immer geradeaus und immer mit der Ruhe, which means always go forward and always with ease. And so what we do now is go onward with ease, but walk where our feet are. So if there's a myth or something out there, it's kind of what you've all been saying, is we bring it back to the person, but you can do this yourselves, bring it back to yourself, going, hang on, if we were moving with ease here and we were walking, starting from where our feet were and moving forward, how would we look at this? Does this even make sense from my perspective? Or is it just habit? I heard something the other day, and I mean, I've been on a personal development journey and coaching for, well, since 2001 and probably a bit before that, but not as formally. But I only heard it again the other day that, is there something, or there is something that says that we can't be happy, that we've got to have a drama. So whether there is something there, even if it is something like the legislation, what's going on there, we can still deal with that by walking where our feet are. Like, how does this impact me? We are at home educating our children. So we spoke about this in one of the earlier sessions today. How do we integrate attending to that? Is it going on a picnic? Is it going on a demonstration with the children? Is it writing a poem about something? But what can we do that's at ease with moving forward, and and then actually don't buy into all the other stuff. Like, let them walk where their feet are, where them is parents, friends, society. Like, if we're solid in what we're doing, who cares? Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, so just we've got to do a lot of breathing, I think, as home educators. Breathing's always good, and just, it's all good. And that's part of holding the space for yourself, your family, your decisions, your children, and you move forward that way. So walk where your feet are and move forward with ease, is onward with ease. We've ended up sort of summarizing it as.
Matt, I just want to, just for anyone who's joined, I just want to make them aware that this is no longer Gail Hanlon's Overcoming Obstacles in Learning. This is your Learn Free Panels, Overcoming Obstacles in Learning. So lots of brains to collaborate on this one. So it should actually even be multiplied in wisdom and knowledge.
That's a theory. About Heidi S, have you got anything to add to that? I'd be interested in what you have to say around this sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, the work that I do, I didn't introduce the work that I do, but like, it's very, very similar to what other Heidi was outlining, actually. And I work with parents to help them move forward. And I love that phrase, with ease. That's what it's about, like moving forward with joy. It doesn't, so we're talking about obstacles, and there are things that we perceive that are in our way of various sizes and degrees, depending on your personal situations. And actually, I think the starting point is, I can't actually see what you're pointing to, Heidi. It's your shelf.
Hashtag ease, I think.
Hashtag ease.
No, there we go. Yeah, so and I think really the starting point is to recognize that they're there, because actually you're not going to move forward at all if you try avoiding them. And there is something to be said for actually asking those questions that Juliet was outlining, but for ourselves. Like, where did I get this idea from? Is this true? Is this really important and going to have a major impact? Or what is the importance and the impact of that thing in my life? So even just starting from that point of recognizing the obstacle, and so we use phrases like not putting it under the carpet. Don't put it under the carpet and hope it will go away, because actually those things that you hold as obstacles for yourself will keep coming back if you don't resolve them. and if you don't, you know, ask those questions and recognize they're there. Because once you've gone through that process with ease, hopefully, and maybe with some guidance along the way, you know, out the other side is actually what this conference is all about, that bolder, freer, louder, because you come out the other side really convicted about what you're doing, really confident in, you know, how you're home educating within your family, and that is all for the better. But it's a really ongoing process. I mean, we talked, you know, Julie talked about those obstacles right at the beginning about what society tells us. And then there are probably some of us here who have been home educating a long time, and every now and then a new something pops up that we have to think through and unpick and ask those questions all over again.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm interested to hear from you, Julie, as well. Yeah, it sounds like amazing stuff you're doing, walking people through that initial stage of home education, which sounds amazing. So thank you for doing that. How do you go about a kind of approaching that sort of obstacle with the people that you're with? I'd be interested to hear from you.
Well, I usually do it with Juliet, actually. So, you know, so Juliet will know that.
It's
it is very much a case of listening. So when you're actually talking to people who are coming to home education, they are usually scared. Actually, I think that's primarily what you get, scared and worried. There's a lot of anxiety. They're trying to decide if they're doing the right thing. I don't think I've ever met somebody who's coming into home education who's either considering it or has just started it, who hasn't done an awful lot of soul searching on the subject and is doing it for any other reason than they believe it is absolutely in the best interest of their child. Because it actually takes a huge leap to actually go against societal norms, to go saying, actually, I know this is what's expected of me and this is what people have told me I should be doing. And we get trained from when we're pregnant, actually. Certainly as mothers, you get told what you should be doing and how you do things, and there are lots and lots of people to give you advice which may or may not be helpful, and lots of it is conflicting, and you basically get a lot of your autonomy is taken away, and you just happily go along, and usually most parents will actually just follow along that path and do what's expected of them. It's scary. Stepping off into unknown territory is very, very scary. And so I find that when people come to us, they're after reassurance, they're after if they're after somebody to tell them what to do, they're going to be very disappointed, because we generally don't tell them what to do, because the nature of support is you don't actually tell somebody what to do. And in fact, sometimes they're trying to make a decision, and it's very much about not making that decision for them, but instead trying to lay out some options, and they've got to actually go making that the final decision has to be their own. But generally it's reassurance, and then advice, and we're very often, I think, the first voices that they hear that don't condemn the decision to home educate, who don't poo-poo it, that don't say, oh, don't be silly, or be insisting that really they should try it again. We do calls once a month, as well as doing anything that we do via instant messaging. But we used to, before the pandemic, be physically meeting up in the library, and the library was chosen, as in Central Library here in Coventry, because it was a public, safe place where people could come into, and there was obviously their children could read books whilst their parents were talking, and it was out in the open, but not in the weather, as in it was enclosed. Although there was one incident with spiders, my daughter screamed. But anyway, I learned to take tissues with me, because the number of times I had parents basically burst into tears whilst they were talking to you, and it would be from relief, just relief at having someone to talk to, because they've got all of these thoughts going around and around inside their heads. And when they come to home education, usually at their end of the tether, they are quite literally, they don't know what to do. It is, for most people who come in, their last resort. By that point, it's the only thing they can think to do. Personally, I think that's very sad, because I think home education should be something that is a viable option. It should be explored as a possibility from the outset, and it should be up there as just being just one of those choices. Does your child go to school, or do you home educate? School-based education may be best for some families. Home education may be better for others. I have my clear preference, but that's not for me to make that decision. But yeah, so most people, it's anxiety, fear, and it comes from social pressure a lot of the time. Oh, and being told you can't do it. I think we're told as parents a lot not to believe in our own abilities, and to think of yourselves as just being like helpless children who can't think for yourself. I do find that a lot, just generally.
Yeah, so I remember hearing somewhere else as well that kind of, we often bow to authority, even though actually authority may not always get it 100% right all the time. And so, yeah, it's going on your own intuition sometimes. And so what's coming back is sort of a theme is having conversations with people around this sort of stuff. And I guess exploring the why behind things. And if you know your why, then why are we home educated, and you can keep going back to that. And that whole thing about it's not, maybe the schooling at the moment seems to be quite about a lot about putting information into children, but it's not about how they turn out. And I think if we have that, what sort of abilities, what sort of people do we want our children to be at the end of it, and kind of that's our why. Do we want them to be creative? Do we want them to be courageous? Do we want them to be, I'm coming up lots of C words, curious, and all these sorts of things? If we have that as the why for us, and those times, believe me, I get several wobbles a week doing home education. And you kind of just got to keep going back to that. Okay, why are we doing this? And I think that's one of the key things. Like I say, advice to anyone is sorting out your whys, and then that everything else flows from that. So
So I guess on the, if I'm going to put another question for the panel, as it were. So another obstacle then, which is the flip side of the myths and misconceptions about home education, which we've just discussed. The other obstacle is fear. So people are afraid to home educate. So how should people tackle the fear?
I guess one of the things is what are people afraid of, isn't it? I think that's one of the things. So I'm interested, yeah. So what do people think? What is the what are the fears that people have around home education? How do we overcome those? Yeah, Anya.
I think for me, the greatest fear would have been the fear of failure, because obviously everybody sends their kids to school. That's the way. And if it goes wrong, it's no one's fault, if that makes sense. But if I choose to home educate my child and something goes wrong, that's entirely on me. But I mean, it's not the real truth, because the real truth, it's entirely on you if you send your kid to school. But the way it's viewed is like, now I'm the culprit because I did it wrong, when actually most likely you are less likely to do it wrong than the school would. So fear is usually not based on fact, is it? So I'm getting myself in the muddle here, but do you see the point I'm trying to make?
Yeah, definitely. That the idea that it's all on us, is that the sort of thing that what happens if you make one little mistake, and maybe I'll personalize.
Yeah, because if I send them to school and something goes wrong, it's the teacher's fault, or it's the headmaster's fault, or it's the bus driver's fault. It's somebody else's fault. It's not mine. But if I have them at home, it's my fault, because I would not fault fault myself for sending them to school because that's just what's done. That's just what's expected of me.
Yeah, yeah. So how do we combat that fear then? What about what other people think? How do we combat the fear of failure, that fear of not getting things right?
I can comment on having a different relationship to mistakes. So getting things right. I was interviewed, I think we were probably just into the second year of home education, and I was interviewed by TV, all our family, the boys and I were interviewed, and then they went to our co-op as well. And they said, you know, the lady said, do you ever wonder if you're doing the right thing? And I don't even know if I thought about that before she asked the question. And I just went, I tried that on, and I thought, well, I could be sending them to school and wondering if I'm doing the right thing. You know, it's the same thing, because it is our responsibility, and it's also the child's responsibility as well. But if you reframe what mistake is, that mistake is it's just feedback. So there is no wrong as such. There is no mistake. It's just feedback. Oh, that happened today, you know. Well, you know, again, just try that on. Was that okay? What can I learn from that? Lean into it, not bury it again, like and ignore it and all rainbows and lollipops. But you know, you still lean into it is what, yeah, and find out, well, okay, what can we learn from that? Okay, I can learn better communication skills. You know, with one of my boys, with both of them now, is teenage years, because it's a whole new level of deschooling when you get to teen years. You're still deschooling even 8 years later, but it's a different level, because when I was a teenager, this was what we did at school. You know, this is what we did. We were into blazers then, and you know, and you know, like there was more formal approach to school then that my children aren't going through anymore, that I always envisaged going to a private school. But that's not happening anymore, and we're so laid back. They're self-directed now, and it's like all these buttons are pressed going, are we doing this right? Well, what really can go wrong, as long as they are happy? And sometimes they're not happy, and sometimes we're not happy, and sometimes we're actually happy and proud and sad all at the same time. You know, so we just you know, holds, again, I come back to that whole space, and just, it's all okay. Even when somebody else might think that it's not okay, and it is okay, because we're getting a learning from it, and we can move forward, and we won't need to experience that again, or we'll be set up differently next time, or we'll take tissues next time, or we'll, you know, not go over there because there's too many spiders, or whatever, you know. But I'm not sure if people have a fear because you might have more than one child, you know, or you've got a baby there, or, you know, that it's just something practical, or I'm on my own and my husband's not that interested, or my wife's not that interested, or somebody's got to earn the money. Like there's all those fears as well. It's not just, am I going to stuff up my child? It's how are we actually practically going to do this? Will I be able to give them enough resources? Because at school we've got a science lab, we've got a, you know, workshop, we've got all these different resources, and yeah, I can give them the state library, but what else? And my love, you know, and the state library, and what else? So there's those sort of fears. Am I enough? Not will I fail so much. Am I enough? Have we got enough? You know, they want more musical instruments, more programs on their computer, more, you know, to do what they want to do. But then you can think, well, how can we do that? How can we make that happen? What do we need to do? Who do I need to be? I loved what you said. Was it Matthew, when you said, Matt, when you said working out what you really want for your child, and what you know, and that you can even have a mission statement. If you've just started home educating, have a family mission statement on what you want it to look like. And then we need to be the change. So if we want courageous kids, well, we do need to be courageous. If we want happy kids, well, you know, or well-centered children or grounded children or kids that know that they can solve any problem, well, we've got to do that. And it's got to be real. When I, you know, get overwhelmed and have too much in my head, how do I come down from that? Do I throw things? Do I put on a specific song and come on down? You know, how do I do that so that I can teach by default?
Yeah. I love what you said towards the beginning there, Heidi. Is that the thing about this? It's not reframing mistakes, and actually there are learning opportunities. Sounds like one of those things that you see on a wall. But it, well, I've just said, but it's that. But I think that's so true. And if we reframe those things, where maybe things don't go quite right, and I think especially for our children as well, and they can see, well, if you do mess up or something doesn't go quite to plan, how do we deal with it? And how do people get over that sort of thing? So I think that's a really, I loved that. That's one thing I definitely picked up from what you were just saying there, is that actually if things are if mistakes are made, then it's just kind of reframing those and saying, actually, what are these learning moments? What are these things? What can we learn from this, and how do we go about changing that and moving on from that? Has anyone else got anything to speak into that at all? Heidi, yes.
Yeah, I wonder if just going back to the idea a little bit of things being our responsibility and how our children, you know, what happens to them in the future, how our children turn up and how our children turn out, and that being our responsibility, and then us gauging how well we did, you know, or like we said, it could be the school system, but how well we did, and it being a reflection upon us. And I think there's a lot in there about us having this measurement of success and us measuring what success looks like, which I think when you begin home educating, it's a very valid sort of thing to think, like, what's this going to look like in the future? How are my children going to be? And taking that very personally and taking on that responsibility. But actually, when you begin maybe to have home educated for a while, like measuring success is a really schooled thing. Like that's something we have learned from school. So when we talk about deschooling, you suddenly have like these little epiphany moments where you think, well, hang on a minute, school is measuring what success, or setting the standard maybe for what success looks like, and we're holding those same standards in our family, but we're not doing that. That's something we've sort of walked away from, and we're doing something else. So we don't actually need to bring all that into what we're doing as a family. And I love that idea of making a mission statement. It's something that I do encourage people to do, but I've never put it in those terms. You know, thinking about, well, how did you get here? How did you get at the beginning of this journey? What made you decide that this is what you wanted to do? And then turning that into, you know, what is it we're sort of trying to achieve? What is it we are hoping for? And not in terms of a measurement of success, but in terms of having something that grounds us when things do get tricky, to remind ourselves why we're here and what we're doing. And like, I think it was Julie said, fairly often, in fact, I mean, she said she doesn't think she's heard anyone where it's not related to doing something better for our children. I don't think I've heard anyone that hasn't related it somehow in some way, framed it into doing something for our children that is better than school and better than what they have had previously. So I really love that the term mission statement. I'm going to take that one on board.
Yeah, thank you for that, Heidi, and thank you, Nick, for that comment as well in the chat about yeah, kind of almost that's the mission statement becomes our assessment, as it were. Now, how close are we still going along with our mission statement? There's this thing that we set out. This is what we want for our children, and that's our assessment. Almost like, oh, how well are we doing on the mission? Does the mission need to be changed as well? Have we gone in a different way? And that's okay as well. do we yeah, is this still the mission of our family? Are we still moving in the direction that we want to do? And I think one of the other things that comes to mind with that, oh yeah, go on, Juliet, because
No,
I'm
I
going to
don't
go off on a
mind.
slightly
Yeah.
different tangent. But go on then, Juliet. What were
Well,
you
I
going
was
to say?
going to say, would this be a good time to maybe talk about the rocks and the stones and the sand, which I'm always banging on about the
There's always a good time to talk about the rocks and the stones.
because I did a talk on sort of big picture thinking. I actually had it up in case we needed it as backup today because, oh, by the way, Gail is ill, but she only told me now. So I want to actually, I can quickly maybe just go to the screen, do this like proper, if I can just find my Zoom again, which is the problem. The Zoom has disappeared, so now I can't, oh, there you are, Matt, I can find you. So I can screen share that. So some have heard me talk about this before. Is screen sharing enabled? There we go, got it. Okay, so basically, you know, there's this story about a professor who stood in front of like a group of his students, and he said, you know, I've got this jar and I've got these rocks and the stones and the little stones and sand. Do you think I'm going to fit them all in the jar? And they basically said, no, we don't think you can. And he then proceeded to do a demonstration. So he put the biggest rocks in first. And he said to them, you know, is it full? And they said, yes, it's full. And then he took the smaller stones, put them in, but shook them in. They all filled in between the little gaps. And he said, okay, so now is it full? And they said, yes, it's full. And then he took the sand and managed to shake the sand in, and the sand filled in all in the little cracks and the little gaps. And he said, well, now is it full? And they said, yeah, no, it's definitely full. And he took some water and was able to still put water in. And this analogy is it's about like, this lines up with the mission statement thing. It's like, what are the rocks in your life? What are the non-negotiables? They need to come in first. So if you do nothing else, you get the rocks in. And then what are the smaller stones and what is the sand? So you kind of prioritize what those could be. And so this slide kind of shows you the kinds of things that might be your rocks. So for you, your biggest priority might be your faith and your beliefs, relationship with family, relationship with others, character, those, you know, mental health and well-being. Those things are actually, you'll find that often the things that are your rocks are very rarely academics. And then your pebbles, your smaller stones, would be things that matter, but in the big picture, maybe that's not as big a deal. So life skills to me are still really important and should fit in, you know, literacy and numeracy as a, you know, basic, having a good work ethic, having their gifts and talents developed, being able to care and serve others. And you'll find that then the sand is your remaining things, your little sundry bits and pieces, which is including your console games and watching TV. And now if you put the sand in first, you run out of time to do the other things. So if you allow your time to become filled with these other things, the busy work, the sundry academics, or watching TV, these other things suffer. So it's quite important that as a family, you decide what are the rocks, and that's the thing that you hold on to every day. And then if your day is going really well, you can add the other things, but they shouldn't be the things filling because if you'd put the sand in the jar first, you wouldn't have got the other things in. And I just think it's a really important lesson that I really love this analogy. So sorry to, you know, but we've had a little bit of a formal talk there now, so you can say you know, got your value.
Thanks, Juliet. I like that. One of the things I was thinking of as well is with the whole school thing and think about that obstacle, the fear obstacle, was actually, how do we know how it would have been in school anyway? I think it could have been worse. And our situation here, one of my children suffer from anxiety, and actually, who's to say that she's gone through this time. It's been really a challenging time for her and us, but actually that could have been so much worse in the school environment. and you don't know what you don't know. I think that's one of the things as well. So yeah, when people say, are you gonna, when those thoughts come, are you messing up your children by not sending them to school? Well, actually, maybe it would have been worse in school, and I think it's what other people have said as well. You kind of know your children, and going with your parental instinct as well. That's yeah, you've got to go with that as well. And where we're coming towards the end of this hour, it's been fantastic. Thank you. And just if there are any other things that people would like to talk about, any other obstacles that it'd be good to talk around, then either please raise your hand. Oh, fantastic. So I think is that Iona?
Yeah, I accidentally clapped rather than raised my hand, but
that's okay. We take applause as well.
I think key in confidence, especially at the beginning, but definitely throughout, is knowing other people who've been there before you, because you know plenty of people who send people to who send their little people to school, but do you know somebody who's got teens who have been school? And to me, this conference and my friends who have slightly older kids have been a godsend. I couldn't have saved my sanity and stood up to in-laws and well-meaning friends and relations. You do need these forerunners, and you need to have these talks and to read the books. I mean, John Holt and all sorts of very good books. And maybe it's time for us to put the time into publishing things, little local, I don't know. I suppose people are shy of putting personal things online maybe, but yeah, what we do in community matters enormously for confidence.
Yeah. That's another theme I was thinking of. Thank you for that. Is about community and making sure we're plugged into a community, because you those people will be going through similar things, so you can talk through those, and there are people that are ahead on the journey that we can gain from their wisdom, and also there are people that are following behind. It's not right, not the right analogy, but that actually who are new. Maybe we can encourage as well. And so, yeah, thank you for that reminder. I guess it's that making sure we can connect into that home ed community. And I know that's not always easy for people, and because we don't always know where we can go for those things. I think that's one of the things, kind of our heart. I'm part of the Streams team, the Streams Education, and as part of our heart is how do we connect people, because that's such a valuable thing, particularly people, these very experienced, seasoned home educators have been doing it for 30 years. There's such a valuable resource there, such wisdom. How do we tap into that? So if you are one of those people, we'd love you to come on to be on. Oh, feels like a little bit of a plug now, but I know Learn Free are about this as well, but also with Streams as well. That mentoring thing. How do we encourage people to mentor other people that are new to this? And that sounds like the sort of thing you're doing as well, Julie, and which I love. Is that I guess as we go on in our own journeys, how do we look to people who are just starting? How do we share what we've learned with people?
I mean, from my point of view, the single most helpful thing a local authority.
Well, you're quite quiet, Julie. I think you're.
Sorry, I put it
There
up
you
out the way. Sipping my tea. The single most useful thing a local authority could do, but usually doesn't do, be to signpost new home educators towards existing home educators, because it's actually making contact with local home educators, getting the support of local home educators, and finding your tribe, as it were, actually finding people who've been there before, know what the problems are, and can signpost you on, because the local authority won't do it. So therefore, you need somebody else to do it, and to be able to do it effectively, because that's a large part of what any local group is actually doing, is actually trying to help others in the community, usually newer home educators, although sometimes it can be existing home educators. So that is something I would like to see, I must admit, would be local authorities actually signposting new home educators on to existing home educators, rather than viewing us as the enemy or something
Yeah.
where we're to be avoided.
That would, yeah.
Silly ideas.
And I guess if the local authorities aren't going to do it, how do we do that ourselves and make sure we're visible enough to be able to? Anyone else like to speak into that? Heidi C.
Yeah, what a vision that would be, you know. And then you go, if we want the local authorities to do that, that's an amazing vision, because that's change maker. That's a change maker. So I guess what you just said then, Matt, how can we be the change to do that and gradually show that that's what we desire and need as part of our community in home educating. I just wondered in the next, like the last 6 minutes or so, and if people don't want to speak up, they write it in their chat, but we're just talking about getting all our wisdom together, whether you've been doing it for a couple of months or years. Go around and just say top tip. Like if there was like 1,000 new home educators in this room in the next Learn Free conference, you know, or at least 1,000 or two listening to all these recordings, what's the gem? What's the gem? And it could be, you know, if you've got 2 boys, this is what you do. If you've got 2 girls, this is whatever. It's something, your gem. Share your gem because somebody wants to hear it, and we go around and attract that. And maybe we can capture all of these and put them in a blog on Streams or something like that, or take them to a Clubhouse event, or I don't know. So will I start with my gem?
Yeah, go for it, Heidi.
My gem that an adorable homeschool mum gave to me 8 years ago, and we bought 2 puppies from her, so that was good as well. But her gem was that behind is a dirty word. The word behind, not used in the house. You can't be behind. Your child is where they are. Behind is a dirty word. There's mine.
Thank you, Ina, for putting that in. So Ina's one would be let them play. Thank you for that. So I'm gonna anyone else like to jump? Go on then, Heidi.
Yeah, I'll go. I mean, I would have said let them play. That's like, I mean, it's called live, play, learn. I mean, that's what I'm all about. Very, very similar to let them play. Maybe you've moved on, or maybe your children have moved on from like what we would call traditional play that we would recognise as play. And my top tip would be to let them be. Just let your children be whatever they're doing. Let them do that. Let them find their thing and their interests and their passions, and go with that.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you for that. And thank you, Nick. So hers would be to use your child's happiness as a barometer of success. I like that. Thank you for that. Anyone else? What would yours be? Yeah, go on then, Judy. Thank you.
Listen to your children. So it's very similar to Heidi's. Your children know what they want. They may not be able to express it because of their age and their abilities, but you can listen to them in other ways, and you can actually read what they want and actually think of when you're coming up with your mission statement. And we discussed earlier, don't forget to include your children's opinions and what they want in that mission statement, because if you try to move forward with anything in the way of a plan and they're not with you, you're going to be fighting with them every step of the way, and that means that you're going to have a very miserable time of it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. That listen is so important, isn't it? Yeah, thank you for that. I think mine would be, I've got a few that come to mind, but I think going from the theme of this is kind of know what your yes is, know what your big yes is, know what your why is, because then you can say no to things, and also linking that to as a parent, what sort of character, what sort of thing do you want to develop in your children, and actually know what that is. And I think that goes along with the mission statement thing, knowing what your big yes is, what are you for, so that you can say no to the other things that take you away from that. And thank you, Lottie, for putting that in there. Enjoy your children's individuality and gifts and their surprise, for example, their surprising solutions to problems. Yeah, I love that. Thank you very much. Brilliant. Anyone else have anything they would like to share, your top tips, your top thing?
I want to hear Elizabeth's. I just feel that there's something really big there, really nice there.
I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. I really don't think I'm in a situation to give tips. I was home educated, but yeah.
So your top tip with a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old?
I don't know. No, I don't know.
You're showing it, 7% of communications words, 38% is tone of voice, 55% is body language. You exude joy, like your laugh.
That was what I was going to say, joy. That was what I saw, totally with you.
Yeah, so that's your top tip.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Elizabeth. Fantastic. Well, Anya, what about you? What would you say?
I'm just writing. I think I want to say, like, mother knows best, but not against your children, but against people. Like, you as I'm so sorry, mother. As a parent, you know your children best. Nobody in this world knows your children as well as you do. So nobody can want more or better for them than you can. So whatever people tell you, whatever people want to give you as good advice, what maybe even what they've experienced, listen to everything, but only take what you know is right for your children, because your children are given to you, not to anybody else. They're yours and for a reason. So you know how to raise them, how to teach them, how to do all those things.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Amazing. And thank you, Abby, as well, for putting in the chat. Yours with a 2-year-old would be go with the flow. Yes. Yeah, love that. Well, thank you so much. And on the go with the flow thing, this session has been a bit more go with the flow. So thank you so much for your conversation starters, your points of view, your input, your questions. Really appreciated you all being here. So thank you. So
have we got everybody's permission to save the chat? Have we got everybody's permission to save the chat? And if you could do that, Matt or Juliet, because there's some captured there. I captured the others here as well, but everyone okay with that?
Yeah, if you're not, please.
Yeah, there's some gems there. Yep. Sorry, Matt, you were closing off.
No, that's good points, mate. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you so much for being part of the Learn Free conference, and hope to see you at some other sessions. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of the